Hey everyone, welcome to Empire Build Academy. I've got a new video for you today and it's the ultimate guide for mobile strategy games, and this is a beginner's guide that you will be able to use across most mobile strategy games because they all tend to follow this similar process. Now the games I'm going to use as an example to show you in these are Age of Empires Mobile, which is this one. Then we've got the Evony game as well, which I will show you examples on. And then the final two games are State of Survival, and then the last one we will use as an example in this is Rise of Kingdoms. So we're going to jump in with a detailed breakdown of the mobile strategy game for someone who's never played one before, and as I said, I will use those games as an example to show you with a clear example of the buildings, the troops, the research and other key elements as well. And the goal is to make this accessible and engaging, walking you through what to expect and how to approach the game as a beginner. So that is the idea of this particular guide. Now, what is a mobile strategy game? That's the first question that we've got. And mobile strategy games are typically real-time or turn-based games where you build a base, you manage resources, train armies, research upgrades, and engage in battles or alliances with other players. These games also combine long-term planning or strategy with tactical decision-making, often set in a medieval, sci-fi, or fantasy world, which you'll see from the examples in the games. And these games are designed to be played in a short burst, but reward consistent progress over time, and that is actually quite key. As a beginner, your focus will be on learning the game systems, building a strong foundation and avoiding common pitfalls. So we're going to break this down step by step, and we're going to start off with the key buildings and their functions. Now, the core mechanics of a mobile strategy game, for example, in Age of Empires and Evony, you're a ruler building a kingdom from a small village. So you're starting off with absolutely nothing, and your objectives are to expand your base, gather resources, which we will talk about, train troops, and compete or cooperate with other players to try and get ahead in the game with your account. Now, the key components, starting with the buildings and their function. Building your base is the heart of your game, and that's where everything is done. It's a customizable area where you construct and upgrade buildings to unlock new features, generate resources, and prepare for battles. Now, if we go and use the different games that we've got as an example, and we will start off with Age of Empires, and let's go back to the home screen in here. Now, all the games that I'm using as an example today, they do all have progress quite far through because I'm using these for the different examples in the guides that I'm going to be producing. So the first thing that we're going to look at is your main building, which is your town centre. It can be called a castle, it can be called a keep. There are various different names, but basically they all look like this. So this is what it looks like on Age of Empires. If we go across to Evony and have a look at this one, and again let's move over right there into the middle, and this is what it will look like on Evony. And then State of Survival, let's have a look at the example on there. And if I just zoom out of here, and the example building on State of Survival is this one. It's called a headquarters. You may have noticed there. And then the last one we'll have a look at is Rise of Kingdoms. And you may notice as well that some of these, not all of them, some of them come with a customizable effect where you can move buildings around and position them all in a certain way, which is what I've done with this particular Rise of Kingdoms one. But let's have a look at the main building there. So that's what it is for that particular one. So that is, like I say, for your town hall, for your castles, for your keeps. And normally the way it works is you would need to upgrade that to the next level before you can upgrade any other building below it. So if you haven't got your town or your castle to level 3, you wouldn't be able to upgrade any other building to level 3 with that as well. The other thing that we're going to have a quick look at as well on all of these, just to show you the example, is these ones here, the resource buildings. There's normally 4. It normally comes with food, wood, stone, and gold. It can be ore, it can be metal, it can be iron, but there's normally 4 different ones. That's what it looks like on Rise of Kingdoms. Let's go and have a look at how this looks on State of Survival. And the resource ones on here are up here. You can see that's what it looks like there. Some of them have loads of them that you have to build and upgrade. Some of them keep them very, very minimal in what you need to add. But resources are a crucial part of your development because this is what you will will use to build and research other buildings, other upgrades, etc. So they play a very crucial part in what you're doing, and you need to stay on top of this and get them to the highest level you possibly can. And also make sure in research, which we'll have a look at later, but also making sure in research that your resource production is at its max possible. At the end of the day, you don't want to be running out of resources and not being able to go to the next level. And just to show you what the other resource points look like on the other two games, as an example, this is Evony, and if we jump across to the resource points on here, you can see they are all down here, and sometimes the resource points will also come in with some troop training as well, so you'll get some army camps and things like this as well. Let's have a look at what this looks like on Age of Empires, and when we go into Age of Empires, you can see the resource buildings are scattered all around. So this is where my food is, and then if I just move across, I won't show you all of them, but again, the lumber is over here, and then the gold and the stone are towards the top on Age of Empires. The next thing that we want to look at is the specific buildings for defense, and that normally comes as we're on Age of Empires. Let's start with there. We've got things like the guard tower and the wall. You'll find these kind of things on here. When we go to another one, let's go to Evony. They've got other kind of defense buildings in there as well, such as the Archer Tower. Now, not all of them will have this kind of thing, but some of them do, so it's worth keeping an eye on what and how these work. Same with your wall as well. Let's go back to this. So this is the wall on Evony, and when I go into there and click inside, you can see that I've got defense general options which can be attached to the wall to provide even more buffs in looking after your castle. And it's obviously something that you need to be aware of when looking at your defense on each of these different games. Let's go and have a look at it on a different game now. Let's go and have a look at this on State of Survival, and again the defense buildings on State of Survival. So we've got things like the barricade on this, which is another word for the wall. Again, we can position people in certain places, so we've got hero appointments and things like that as well. So we can throw in a defensive strategist and a flag bearer on State of Survival. Let's come back off that. So let's go across to Rise of Kingdoms and have a look at how it looks over there. And again, you can see we've got the wall. We also have this option here, which we can also look inside. And again, you can see that you can garrison commanders. And they're all pretty similar in that kind of thing. It's normally your wall that will have some kind of option to throw those people into that. So when looking for the different buildings, like I say, just keep an eye out for those things where there's arch towers, things like that. Normally as well, and I'm just going to do this quickly on here, when you hold down, you can normally see what the different building names are. Doesn't look like we can do that on Rise of Kingdoms, but just to show you as an example, if I was to go to State of Survival and I was to hold down, these actually have all the names across them. So you can see on here we've got things like assembly point, trading post, that kind of thing. Just going to come off that now. Whereas in Evony, if you just hold down while scrolling, it will show you the names of all the different ones, and you can see things like Archer Camp, Research Factory, Academy, very big in all of these games. Academy is normally where you will do all your research and you will gain knowledge to gain additional buffs and things like that. So that is also something to be aware of. And I think this is a good point actually now just to talk about the Academy, because this is going to be something else that is very crucial to your build, and this is where you will do all your research that I just mentioned. And I'll just show you the different buildings on the different ones. So let's go to Age of Empires, and you can see the research over here is actually called University. So that would be this building here. And then just to show you the example of what that looks like on State of Survival, you can see that it's called the Research Lab on State of Survival. And then finally on Rise of Kingdoms, to show you the example on there, where you can see that we've got this building over here. Again, this one is called the Academy, and that's where you would do it in there. So let's jump inside the Academy and have a look at what kind of things go on inside there. So this is Rise of Kingdoms, and normally when you go inside there, there are normally a economic side of technology, and then you also have the military side of technology, and that's normally the way these kind of games go. Some of them extend them further than others. They all use this kind of tree formation for the different research, and I always say as well, when you first start starting out on these games, the economic side of things is the most important thing to concentrate on the beginning. The attacking can come later. The economic side of things, where you are improving how much resource you're getting, you are increasing the speed of buildings being upgraded, you are increasing the speed in which research is done. And you can see going across here all these different things. If we click on this one here, this is where I would be able to gather gold on the map. Very important. I've already got it to its maximum, and that's normally where I go. So handcart, gathering speed. Gathering is another crucial thing, which I will also talk about in a moment. But that's what the research is. That's what the research tree looks like. And just to go into the military side of things as well, you will see the different kinds of buffs. This one actually increases the attack of the archer units. And if we come off that and let's use a different example now, let's go to state of survival and have a look at what the research looks like in here. And again, we're going to go into that research lab. So it's here, and you can see again, clicking on research, that tree formation that I was talking about. This one has 3 different ones. It has development, battle, and economic. Again, I will always say the economic and the development would be the 2 I would be focusing on from the very beginning, because that is speeding things up. It's reducing the cost of things. That's what I'd want to be doing. Let's now go and have a look at this on Age of Empires. Again, you're going to notice that tree formation. This is the university that they call it on here. Clicking into research, and again, you've got that tree formation. And when we go back off this, just going to jump out, go back in, research. Again, you can see there's 2 different types that I've got in here. I've got economy, and then I also have military. Now, like I say, most games work in that way. And each time that you are doing one of these, you are improving the buffs. For this example, pikeman's attack. So that is for research. Very, very crucial that we do that. Let's now go to the next thing, which is resource management. And we've already had a little brief overview of the resource management, but let's also add gathering into this as well. As I mentioned, resources are crucial on all of these games to upgrading and buildings, as well as new buildings and research. So the quicker we can grab these resources and the more that we can grab of them is going to be key to our development in these games. And resource management and gathering is crucial. Now, when we talk about gathering, let's go over to Age of Empires first and have a look on this one. And normally what you would need to do in terms of gathering is go to the world. There's normally some kind of option. This is what it looks like on here. Is normally a map or a globe or something similar. And when I click into that, it would normally then take me to the world where you'd be able to see all these different resource points. So you can see there's lots of different things floating over here. They've normally got some kind of number or something attached so that you can identify what the different ones are. You'd also find which ones are occupied by other people, and that's crucial. You don't want to be attacking other people that are gathering resources, which can happen. If I was to go to that number 5 one, I can't because they're in my alliance. But if that was from a different alliance, I would be able to go and attack that particular resource spot and kill any enemies in there, which from a game perspective on the mobile strategy side of things is something that we tend not to do across the whole spectrum of these games. Normally, resource gathering is something we all do. We leave it alone and you go and find your own individual one. So you can see on this number 3 one, if I click on that, you can see there is 540,000 gold in there, and I could then send my troops to go and gather that. The other thing to be aware of as well is how many troop marches you have. So you can see on this one here, I've got 4 out of 5 that are out there. So I will tell this 5th march, which you can see down here, this 5th march here, I'm going to send them out to go and gather those additional resources, which they've now done, and they are now doing that. And that is crucial. Gathering is very, very crucial. Let's see what gathering looks like on the other types of games. Let's go and have a look at Evony. And again, we need to go into these world type icons. This is where it is on here. It's a globe. Clicking on that globe, again, takes me to the world. And again, you can see there are different resource points all over. So you can see there is a farm one over here. There's another farm one over here. Again, you would just make sure that no one is in them. You can see we've got a wood version over here. Make sure no one's in them, and then go and occupy them with how many marches you've got. And normally when you go into the world, you will normally see something like this to let you know how many marches are free and available to go and do that. And you should always be utilizing all your marches on gathering. Now, as I said, you can attack other resources. That is something that happens in the game, but you would need to make sure that this is something that is acceptable, which, like I say, normally isn't, but it's normally guided by your alliance leaders. It's normally guided by world chat as to whether that is something you can do. Like I say, rule of thumb for me, I don't attack any resource spots. I leave them alone. Now, in terms of protecting your resources as well, so obviously you've got your resources, and you will see normally something like this at the top where it will show you how much resources you've got. One thing to be aware of is these resources actually can be stolen, so you want to protect that. And you normally can do that by upgrading your storage, doing some research. It's normally called a warehouse or something along those lines, and checking what your capacity is before anything can be stolen. So let's go and have a look at my one on Evony now. And when I click into this one here, you will see something along those lines that you can see there. My gathering capacity and what is the safe resource as well. So you can see that there is the potential for some of this wood to be stolen when I am being attacked. Two things I will say. One, try and keep those resources down and spend them as and when you're using them. And two, this is for all games as well. Normally food is consumed by your troops that you train. So we always say keep that down to the bare minimum. Only open your resources as and when you need them. So when you are upgrading, always leave that food at its minimum so it's not consumed by troops, which is normally an okay feature on all of these games. As long as it's not open, it won't be consumed, and that is exactly the case with Evony, and it's also the case with Rise of Kingdoms as well. Again, you can see that I've got all my resources here at the top, and I'm keeping them all to a minimum so that those resources aren't open, can't be stolen, and the food can't be consumed by your troops. Which brings us on to training troops, and let's have a look at this and understanding troops and their process. Which game shall we go to? Let's go to State of Survival for this one, and go into this one and having a look at the troops. It's normally along the lines of 4 different types is normally the way. Now, it really depends on the different games that you've got, so I'll show you the example on here. So in this example, you can see that we've got garage, we've got range, we've got barracks, and we've also got workshop. Now, these will all come with different names depending on the game, but it's normally 4 troop types. You will see things like archers instead of range. You will see things like infantry instead of barracks. You will see things like cavalry instead of garage, and you'll see things like siege instead of workshop. And to show you an example of that, so that's what the troops look like on State of Survival. If we go to Rise of Kingdoms and have a look on that one, let me just get rid of that first, and then my troops are all over here. And if I click on this, there's my barracks, there's my stable or cavalry, which it can be known as, there's the archery, and there is the siege or the workshop, which was the same on State of Survival. And let's have a look at one more example on this. Let's have a look at Age of Empires this time. Let's open that up. Let's go back into the world. Let's go back to our buildings. And when we go and have a look on this, you can see holding down there, I've got my swordsman barracks, pikeman barracks, archery range, and stable. And that is normally the way it is. You normally get 4 different troop types. And what happens with those troops is one is better against the other. And it's just finding out in the game what is better in this respect. So let's click on to my archery. If I clicked on the information, you've normally find these kind of icons on all of these kind of games, but if I do click on this particular one, it will normally say what it's pretty good against, although on this particular one it actually doesn't, which isn't very helpful in showing you an example. But if I go over to Evony and have a look on there, I'm sure it tells me on here. It's probably that I've missed it on Age of Empires but didn't notice it straight away. So let's go and have a look at Evony and show you the example on this one. Let's go back into my buildings, and again I'm going to go into the train. In fact, I've remembered where it is on Age of Empires, and I will go back to that in one moment. So if I go into the detail on this one, you can see here it says mounted troops possess a battle advantage over ground troops. So you normally find some kind of thing in there, and if I actually went into the particular building to train, you would normally see little icons like this that would show you what they're good against. So in this case, it's saying it has a counter on ground troops, and then it will also make you aware that you will receive additional damage if ranged was to attack you. So the mounted is poor against the range, but it's good against the ground, and it's just making sure you're aware of what the different troop types are and how they actually act against different ones. A lot of the games are similar, but there are some exceptions to the rule, so it's very important that you do find that out. So I did say I remember where it was on Age of Empires, so let's go straight back to that and have a look. Now, when I go into train, we have these icons again that I was talking about over here, and when you look into these icons, it will show you that these arrows are strong enough to pierce clouds and break rocks, greatly increases archers' damage against swordsmen. So you can see that this particular troop type will be good against swordsmen, and if I came out of this and then went into a different troop type like the pikeman barracks, for example, and I click into train in here, I'll go to that same icon and click on that. Again, you can see this greatly increases pikeman's damage against cavalry. So that is how you would do that. That is how that is done. Now, with the troops themselves, they need training. Again, you would need to keep an eye on how and what that does for each of the different games. So this one here, you normally have them in troop types, as you can see going down the left side here, normally starting at T1, working their way down to whatever the game has. So on this one, you can see that the last troop type is this. It is T7, and it would take me a very, very long time before I unlock them. Not only would it take me a long time, but also it will be very, very expensive as well. So on these particular games, you do need to see which troop type is the easiest to achieve. On this one, I believe T5 is where people go, and then it's a long old battle to get there, and I'll show you an example as to what I mean on that. Let's come off this, let's go into research, which we had a look at earlier, and I just want to give you an example of what the research looks like for training troops. So we're going to go over to the military, and you can see all the different ones. Normally it does identify it like this, so you can see that the orange ones going down here, this is a troop type that I have unlocked, and if I continue across, you will see all the different troop types I've unlocked down there. I've unlocked all the T4, they are now done, but you will then notice that T5, I'm sort of still going along with this. And just to show you how expensive this is, if I go onto the veteran cavalry, which I've not yet done, first of all, I would need to get this to number 3 before doing that. But if I click on that veteran cavalry, you will see the kind of resources that is needed. So you can see that it's 8.9 million, 7.4 million, 9.6 million on the stone, 9.6 million on the gold. Very, very expensive. But not only that, you can't see it on here because I haven't unlocked the previous research, but just to give you an example, I already know that it's 14 days of research that I need to do to be able to unlock those particular troop types, and that's why it's very important to get those research done in economy so that you can try and bring that down to its bare minimum. Like I say, research upgrades is one of those things you can research in the academy to make them faster. If I hadn't have done that, it could have been 19 days, 20 days, 30 days, whatever it may be. Now, if I go to Evany and show you the example on Evany, the reason I want to show you on that is because on Evany, if we have a look, you can see this goes all the way up to T16. So very different in the amount of troop types. And for example, on this one, T14 is the one that everyone can get to fairly quickly. I would say people who are spending a little and investing a lot of time will eventually get to T14. That's where I'm at. I've spent a little. I've been playing this particular account for 2 years plus. That is what I now have. In terms of me getting T15, it's just not going to happen. And again, I would need to research that to unlock that, which not only requires the research, but it also requires specific buildings to be able to do that. And if I show you that on Evany now, and what I mean by that, when I click on upgrade and we go and have a look at all the different ones. So if I was to click on detail and show you what I mean here, these are all the different troop types that unlock on Evany. So you can see at level 9 I unlock the mounted boyars, and if I continue all the way down to where I currently am, you can see that the next one is at level 40. So that is when I will unlock T15. But in order to get this building to level 40, I first need to upgrade the actual keep itself, the castle that we was talking about earlier. I've got this at 39, but to upgrade the castle, I need 45 billion. And yes, you did hear right. 45 billion on food, 55 billion on the wood, 55 billion on the stone. It'll be 55 million on the iron. So there's a lot of resources, and this is the reason why I won't be getting there anytime soon, because I'm just not going to have that amount of resources to get there. So to sum up the troop types, like I say, you will get to a certain level that everyone sort of gets to. Some people will get there faster, some people will take longer to get there depending on their investment in the game, which is time, which is money. Both of them are a factor in being able to do that. So that's what you need to take into consideration for training your troops. Also as well, with the troops, you need to experiment with troop combinations. For example, we was talking earlier about the fact that on Evony, cavalry is good against range. So it's testing out all those different formations, testing out what is good against what. There's loads of groups out there that you can go and search. So if you was playing Age of Empires Mobile, you can go and check out Reddit on Age of Empires on there, and you will find out the information of what's good against what, etc., etc. Eventually, with the website that I'm doing, I'm hopeful that eventually, and I'll just jump over there now, that I will be able to get all of these different ones done for you so that you can find them all out on here. So again, when we click on Evony, let's go and click into that, and you will see a breakdown next of all the different things. So I'm going to throw in the beginner's guides, I'm going to throw in the construction guides, troops guides, research guide. I'm going to work through all of these different games, and the idea is I'll do a video, turn it into a blog post, and you'll have all the information there. So eventually, when you come onto the troop section for the Evony, and I'm not quite sure what I've actually done on this and what I haven't, so do bear with me depending on that. But I will put in here all the different ones and what they're good against and what they're not good against, etc., etc., and I'll break all of that down for you in these different guides. Another thing to be aware of actually with troops before we leave the troop section is being aware that you may have a scenario. So like on Evony, using Evony again as an example, you build a load of T1 to defend. So T1, T2, T3, again, you're going to have to find out the combinations and experiment and ask questions as to what you need. But I do know on Evony that people have 1 billion T1, 400 million T2, 100 million T3, and all of this will protect you when it comes to defending. Now, not all games are the same, and you do have to go and check as to what is available for each one, but that would be the situation for that. Now, research, I did cover very briefly on research, but I am going to jump into it again quickly. The research and upgrades, because this is also very important. For this one, let's jump over to Rise of Kingdoms and use this one as an example. And you need to upgrade buildings. All buildings need upgrading. So when I click on a particular building over here, you can see my hospital is level 16. And if I click on the information, it will show you the hospital capacity, what it does, how it works, etc. These all need upgrading. Some are more important than others. As I mentioned before, having all your resource buildings to the highest level is only going to benefit you in the amount of resources that you are getting. Also as well, with things like research, you may need to upgrade your academy, your university, whatever it is, to a certain level before you unlock other research. So that is something to be aware of in there. Let's have a look at a different game. Let's have a look at State of Survival. And again, on State of Survival, having a look at all these different buildings, assembly point. If I go into the information on here, you can see the reinforcement capacity increases the bigger the level of this. And let's have a look at a different building. Let's have a look at the trading post and the information on that. Make trades with other chiefs in the trading post. Upgrade to increase the kind of trades you can make. Again, most games, I would say 95% plus of these games. Let's go to Age of Empires. And again, as I said, most buildings on these games now come, didn't used to be like this, but they now come with the information when you click on the different ones. So if I was to click on Embassy in this one, and then I was to click on the information icon, which you can see here, when I click onto that, it will give you an idea as to what this is. Thrives together with your allies by helping and reinforcing each other. You can see my reinforcement limit is 580k. You can see the alliance assistance chances is 11, but when I click on the information to break that down further by building, you will notice that those alliance assistant chances and the reinforcement limit increases. So again, it's making sure that you understand each building. I couldn't possibly do that on a video like this, but making sure you understand what the building is, what its purpose is, and how important it is for you and your development on the game. Research, I've already said. I'm going to jump back into it very quickly again with the different types that you've got. Always concentrate on economy first, development first, leave the military till last. So this is what it looks like on here. These are the different types of buffs that you're going to get for each of them. And you can see that if I was to go into production of mills 2, I would increase that from 9% to 12%. So again, that is something I want to do. You can see I'm already doing the production of the lumber camps on level 2 because that is important. That's the most important thing. I want to gain as much resources as I possibly can, as quick as I can. So that is why I'm concentrating on that technology. Same again on Evony. Let's go and have a look at what it looks like on Evony. And Evony actually have quite a few in reference to their trees. So when I go over here, in fact, actually Evony have quite a lot because not only do they have all these different tabs at the top, which is providing various buffs, and as I said, advancement would be where I start first. I can speed things up like the production for city farms. I can speed things up like construction speed. I've got this maxed that's giving me an extra 10% construction speed boost and continuing all the way down. But not only that, on this particular one as well, I even do go quite deep in their research. They've actually got another building, and this one is a military research academy. It's taking it to the next level of research. Yes, again, it's going to cost lots more time. It's going to cost lots more money. So again, it's just making sure that you understand what is more important than what and where you should be focusing your research on. So that is for research. That is for upgrading buildings. You do need to keep an eye on those things. Prioritizing upgrading your most used troops. That's another one to be aware of. If you, as I said, if you're always going to be using ranged, that's what kind of troops you want to be promoting. That's the kind of troops that you want to be using all the time. Now let's come off this. Let's go and have a quick look at our next one. And the next one that we're going to look at very quickly is attack and defense. And attacking and defending would need its whole huge video on its own. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how to attack and how to defend on these different games. But what I can do is make you aware of how that works. And how that works is normally you go into your world, which I'm going to do on Rise of Kingdoms. And when I go into the world here, you will see that there are different camps that I can attack or different castles that I can attack. So Santi is here, and normally you will have all these options. You will have scout, rally, attack. If I was to scout, I would get some information on what kind of troops he has, how many troops he has, and maybe some information on any generals that he has on the wall. Rally would mean that I could set a rally and have other alliance members with me joining into those attacks to make it a bigger attack. So instead of sending the 50,000 that I could send, I may be able to send 250,000 with 5 other members joining. And of course, attack is solo attack. That's where you would go there on your own. You've done your scouting, you feel confident you're going to win, but of course, it's being aware that not always are you going to win these battles. You will go into there, you can attack with your big ranged, your big cavalry, your big siege, and then find out that actually their defense was better than your attack. And that's where the defense side of things comes in. Going into research and going into that military and doing all the defense side of things is important, especially if you're going to be someone who is more likely to be a defender than an attacker in these games. And let's use a different one this time. Let's go to State of Survival, and when on this one and going into the world here, again it will be the same kind of thing. You will be looking around the world to see all the different ones that you can got. So we've got this one here, number 16. This person here, you can see that I can attack them when I click onto their account. Again, recon is another version or another word for scout. Again, I've got the option to rally. Again, I've got the option to attack. And there are so many different things that go into attack. Not only is it research, but it can involve things like your general. So we get things like generals that we can send that are suited to a specific troop type. Then on top of that, we can build equipment to go alongside the general. And then, of course, you've got all the different troop types and the different research buffs that can go into all the different attacks. So there's so much that goes into attacking. There is so much that goes into defending. But to simplify it for this particular Ultimate Beginner's Guide, defending, attacking, based on troop types, based on how many troops you have, based on the generals that you're using, based on the equipment that you have from a defensive point of view versus an attacking point of view. And that's how attacking and defending works. Also being aware that you can add things to your keep. So if I go to my one now, my settlement, and I click on that, when I click on this, you will have things like a shield that you can add to protect yourself from being attacked. So that is another thing. All games have a shield of some sort that you can put on your account, especially when you're offline. Imagine you're going offline, you're not going to be on for the next 12 hours. You put a shield on, it protects you from being attacked. That happens again in 99% of these games. Now, some games prefer you not to have a shield, so they'll make it very difficult for you to have a shield. Other games make it very easy. Evony is super easy. I'm always under a bubble when not playing, and that is how easy it is. Whereas Age of Empires, it's actually quite expensive to buy the shields, so it's not always as easy. But what they do is they give you daily a 5-hour peace shield, which is another word for these, that you can place on top of your keep, but you need to do a 2-hour countdown, 2-hour timer before that 5-hour shield is activated. So again, it's just finding out what the different ones are for that as well. And again, it's combinations, it's testing, it's reading Reddit, it's checking out different forums, it's watching videos, understanding what works against what and what doesn't work against this, etc. That is attacking, that is defending. The next thing that we're going to go into, and I'm just going to jump back over to here, is one of the most important things on these games is joining an alliance and becoming stronger. Very, very important on all of these games. Being in a team, being with other people is so crucial. And let's have a look at what this looks like on Age of Empires. Just going to jump into this, and normally you can go into settings, rankings, that kind of thing. So on Age of Empires, you can see we've got the rankings icon, and when I click into that rankings icon, it will show you alliance power. So you can see we've got land power, merits, and power. But if I click on the alliance power, it will show you how powerful each of the alliances are. So you can see that the top one, Zoo, is 631 million in power. They have 141 people that are involved, that are active in that alliance. Not all of them are going to be active, but 141 fairly active people are going to be in there. And of course, they're going to be very, very strong. We have in NSL, we have 144 people with 137 cities. That's how many cities we've taken control of. And our alliance power is 601 million. So you can imagine a battle between Zoo and NSL is going to be damaging to both sides. It's going to be a very hard, difficult war to win. And when you go inside these as well, so if I was to go into number 2 and have a look at the members, not going to show me here. Sometimes you can see them, sometimes you can't. In this particular one, you can't. But what I can do is show you via the Alliance tab that I have in here, which is where you will find all the information about your alliance, what's going on, how it all works. Again, they're all very different in how it works. Technologies you may notice over here. This is where you can do alliance research to get different buffs that are specific to your alliance. So sometimes you can be in an alliance area that will give you additional buffs. But if I go and have a look at the people, the allies in here, and click on this, you will see a breakdown of the difference in terms of power. So you can see that Drunk Tiger, who is in there, 34.5 million, incredible power. Incredible power. I'm not going to win in a fight against that person, so I'm happy he's on our side. But if you went to the other alliance, you would see a similar thing from that perspective as well. So again, it's trying to join the biggest and best alliance that will accept you to offer protection. Because if you're in a big, strong alliance, the likelihood is you are going to be safe. And there's a thing called NAP, no attack policy. You will hear this term in a lot of these games. And normally when you are in a top 5 alliance on these games, there is a no attack policy because they know it's damaging. And a lot of these games all go into server versus server. So eventually all of our server, all the alliances that you can see will actually go up against another server with a load of different alliances in there, and it actually becomes a server versus server war. So again, being part of an alliance is very, very crucial as well. So that is very, very important. Of course, with the alliance side of things, as I mentioned, there will be a lot of things that you can see in there. So this is what it looks like from Age of Empires perspective. Let's go and have a look at what that looks like from an Evony perspective. And inside here, and going into my alliance tab over here, And like I say, you'll normally find something similar. That's what it was like in Age of Empires. And when I click onto here, you will again see things like members and all that kind of stuff. Alliance gifts, treasures, buildings. They all have their own different individual setup. So it's obviously getting used to how that works. So you can see I've got Alliance helps here. If I click on that Alliance helps, I'm going to help all those allies in reducing some kind of timer, whether it's research or building, and that is what has happened there. There'll be Alliance science, as I said. Make sure you're always donating to this. It can be a factor as to whether you are staying in that alliance or not. Another thing you can also do in these games is, of course, chat. So if we go back over to Evony and have a look at here, and normally you get a few different chats. So in this one, there will be a world chat, and it's normally identified by a world icon. Most games will have that feature. And then you will also have like a flag, which normally identifies alliance chat. So again, if I was to go and click onto this one, I'd be seeing all things from an alliance perspective, including rallies that are being set against different monsters. Monsters also play a very big part on these games, and I was talking earlier about that guy that was nearly 35 million on Age of Empires. Now, if there was difficult monsters to attack and he was setting the rallies, he would be the one that I want to join. That's the rallies I want to join. In here, you can see there's different Vikings that are going on. Now, those level 39 Vikings, it's on Hell mode, and they will actually be against really big monsters that I wouldn't necessarily be able to attack myself. But because I'm joining someone who's big and are taking that on themselves with their generals and equipment, I only have to send one troop to that, and I will get the rewards from that as well. So that is another thing to be checking out on as well. Being active, being friendly in there is also going to help you stay within the alliance. There are a lot of games, and I'll use an example, Rise of Kingdoms. Rise of Kingdoms is terrible for being kicked out of an alliance when a new server opens. So when a new server opens, you're all there trying to build, and you'll try and join the 10th alliance, and then before you know it, you're in there for half an hour and you're kicked out. Whereas Evony, completely different way of doing it. And it's again finding out what is the way for these things to work. Next thing that we're going to jump into is free versus paid. This is also a very important thing on these games, and they all have it, every single one. Some games are better for the free to play than others, but at the end of the day, you are not escaping the payer. And on Evony, there are big people who pay lots of money for all the best equipment, for all the best generals, and they're going to be too strong to attack. They're going to be too strong to defend against. But it's finding out those little buffs for the free to play or the person that spends minimal on these games on how to do this. And on Evony, mentioned it already, the getting yourself an army of tons of troops is a really good way to defend on Evony, having tons of T1 troops, but not only just having T1 troops, but also making sure that you understand how things work from a defense perspective. So just to give you an example, on Evony, all about your mounted cavalry, that is the troop type that Evony sort of force on everyone, especially the free to play. And when you go in there and you then have your defense generals attached to this as well, so you see I've got Queen Boudica. Ignore Jar Jar, she's actually a resource production general, but normally if I was defending, I would have Queen Boudica and someone called Isaac Brock on there, and they would be doing my defending using buffs to enhance those X amounts of troops that I've got from a T1 perspective, T2 perspective, making it difficult for anyone to attack. So a solo attack on Evony is actually quite difficult, whether you're a payer or not. But if you are a payer and you are setting a rally against someone, that then becomes damaging. So from a free perspective, you're not going to have the best equipment, you're not going to have the best generals, you are not going to have the high tier buildings and the different parts of the research unlocked. But that doesn't mean that the free to play can't play and enjoy. Some games are terrible, and I will be honest with that. I'm not going to mention any of them, but there are some that are really bad for the free to play, and they really can't get involved too much, and you're forgotten within the first couple of weeks. And there are examples of that all across the mobile strategy game. But there are also games where actually Evony is a good example. If I go into the Alliance now, let's just go into the Alliance and let's just click on the members that are in here. I'm just going to show you as an example. So we've got Freakature at the top there, 4.3 billion. The biggest one is actually Drakeston. So you can see Drakeston is here with his 21.3 billion. Absolutely huge, absolute giant. But you can also see as well, right underneath that, perfect example, Eliza, 1.6 billion. Still playing. This server is 2.5 years old, but we've got a 1.6 billion and a 21.3 billion and a 16.3 billion and a 1.8 billion and a 4.4 billion that you can see on the screen there. They're all online. In fact, actually right at the top there, PT, 537 million, still playing. And that's because this game is actually quite kind in what it offers to the free-to-play. There's a lot of events you can get involved with. There's a lot of grinding that you can get involved with. And also that alliance help side of things, where we can be joining Drakeston's rallies against the big monsters and getting awesome rewards. So where PT, 537 million, wouldn't be able to get the rewards from the big gigantic monsters, he can, because he's going to join the rallies that Drakeston's setting. Some games are really, really good for it. Some games are really, really bad for it. Evony is definitely one of the better. So let's now jump off that and let's go into beginner strategy, because this is something that is key to getting ahead. And what I would say from this is completing all the tutorials. That is also obviously very, very important. Making sure that you are upgrading all your buildings to whatever level they can. Making sure you're concentrating on that research that I talked about earlier, and that you are using the economy side of things to research first. You are going to make things cheaper. You are going to make things quicker in terms of how quick things are done. Buildings can take a long time, but if you're reducing the construction speed by 10%, 20%, 30%, then of course that time that it takes to upgrade that building is of course going to come down. Obviously making sure that you are expanding where you need, when you need, and also gathering. Gathering is a crucial one, it really is. On all these games, the majority of them are games that all require gathering. Make sure all your marches are out gathering those resources that are going to help you upgrade in research and upgrading your buildings. Making sure your gatherers are always out is very, very crucial. And we've just been talking about it, joining a clan, being involved with the biggest alliance that will accept you, getting involved with all the different rallies, getting involved with all the different events. In fact, let's go to, which game shall we choose? Let's choose State of Survival. State of Survival is a good example for events that are going on. You can see all the way at the top here, we've got all these different events that are going on. We've got Terminator events, we've got Shop and Save, we've got Anniversary Festival. There's just loads. Evony is also the same. If I jumped across to Evony and I had a look at what kind of events were going on here, and go into the event tab, you normally find some kind of event center or event tab. And we've got Ranger Night Order, Hecate's Secret Ritual, we've got Hecate's Moon, Glorious Attire, Auction House, Hypnos Dream, which is another great one to earn rewards. Racer Star Trail, let's click onto it and let's actually do today's one, because I can get a coin, I can go into there and then I can spin once to win a reward. Is it going to be an awesome reward? Was Super Safe Resource Chest times 10. The tickets are the best one without a date in here, but they do turn up. So making sure you're involved in all of these different events that are also going on and grinding with that as well. Let's now jump on to common mistakes. And trust me, I'm still making them now on Evony today. You will always find something that you are doing wrong, or something that you are doing slow, or something that you didn't know existed. And Evony is a brilliant one for that. Age of Empires, Rise of Kingdoms, that are all very similar again. You will find something out a year later that you didn't know, that you wish you'd have known a year before. These games have so many restarts and so many different servers going on, because people go, oh, now I know how to do it properly. I'm now going to go and start again in a new server, and I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And finding out what those common beginner mistakes are is very, very crucial. An example of mistakes that people make: rushing too quickly through all the different buildings. Don't rush through them. Make sure you're doing that economy. And I'm going to reiterate again, it's probably the 5th time I've mentioned it, but making sure that your research is at a point that's going to make upgrading buildings far more beneficial than you would do by just rushing. Of course, if you're a spender, you're going to rush, you're going to go and try and get the best generals, you're going to try and speed through as quick as possible. But it's just making sure that you are utilizing what is on offer from the game. Another one is making sure your resources are not open, especially if you are someone who is a target, someone who is potential to be attacked, because those resources can be stolen. So making sure you don't do that is also very crucial. Another one is spending in-game currency recklessly. And what do we mean by that? Well, here's an example. This is how many gems I have on Evony. Let's just jump across there now. And right in the top corner, you can see I have 15 million gems. I'm just going to show you where that is now. And it's right here, 15 million gems. Now, talking about reckless spending, this building over here has some items in there that you can purchase with gems. And if I go into the auction house, you can see all these different ones down here that I can bid on. So we can have a look at this 5 million ore box. You can see there's a lot of people that are bidding for it. It started at 11,000. It's now going for 15,000. And for me to bid on it, it would be 16,000. But do I need it? Am I buying something that actually I don't need? Am I buying something that actually is not going to be beneficial for me? Am I getting it at the cheapest possible version? So making sure you understand your in-game currency and where to use that in-game currency for. Also, as well, another good tip, especially if you're someone who can attack, one of the things that happens on these games a lot is a lot of people will join at the beginning and then they're not playing 3, 4, 5, 6 days later. What tends to happen with those people, though, is they've got resources open. Some people do it deliberately. They'll open all their resources. So if you are seeing someone that's not with an alliance and you can go and attack it and you know you're going to win it and you go and scout it and you find out they've got lots of resources, this is a really, really good tip to get yourself ahead, because going and taking advantage of those people, especially at the beginning, because obviously 6 months down the line they'll have been looted by everyone on the game, but going and doing that at the beginning is going to gain you additional resources that really will make a difference. And then we move on to the final part for this video. I know it's a long one. I'm assuming that I'm probably not going to get it down less than an hour. I don't know how much people are genuinely going to be watching this. And now, if you are actually here and you're at Final Tips for Success and you are still watching and you are still listening, then 1, thank you very much, because that is an achievement and a half. 2, let me know in the comments. Genuinely, let me know in the comments that you've managed to make it this far. But the Final Tips for Success is simple, really. It's starting off small. It's taking advantage of all the things that I've mentioned, making sure that you've got everything that you possibly can in terms of the buffs and things like that. Reading Reddit is crucial, honestly. I've learned so much from all 4 games: Age of Empires Mobile, Evony, State of Survival, Rise of Kingdoms, and a ton of other games that I've played as well. One of the best ways to learn is jumping on Reddit and finding the information. Again, I will shamelessly plug my website. I'm eventually going to add a lot of this to the website as well, so you'll get information. But again, if you are playing Age of Empires Mobile, not only will Reddit be available there for you, but there will be other websites that you can also use to get the information you need. So going and checking out those particular websites, going and checking out the Reddit forums as well. Learn from others. That's a key one as well. Got 3 or 4 people on Evony, and I've got a couple on Age of Empires that are so knowledgeable. I'm listening to everything they say. I'm throwing my questions at them. I'm watching chats, Alliance chat all the time. I'm watching World Chat all the time, especially if it's a game I'm really, really involved in, to get the information I need. There's still things that I'm learning today that I didn't know a year ago, even though I've been playing this game for over 2 years now. I've actually done a couple of videos where people are saying, thanks, I didn't know that existed. So obviously staying involved with that and keeping ahead in that respect. So that is a very long video. I appreciate it's a very long video, but this is my ultimate guide for all of these kind of games. You're going to be armed with information now that you can go and take and use in any game that you want to play. Whether that be Lords Mobile, I haven't added it here. Whether that be Nexus War, which is relatively new. There's loads of these games coming out all the time, and this information that I've provided here today should hopefully help all of you go ahead and be able to play these games. Like I say, this is obviously for the very beginner, but this guide, I did this because I want it to be the main video on my channel, and I also want it to be the main video on my website, because once you've got through this whole hour video, this whole hour and 15 minutes, you should be set up quite nicely to then go and take it to the next level. So instead of being a beginner, you'll then be able to jump into the moderate, the advanced, take things even further. But this information I've provided hopefully should be good in being able to do that. So big massive thank you if you have listened this far. I know it's difficult difficult to listen to these videos, especially when they go on for so long. Hopefully you've got some information that you can now go ahead and use in the games, and hopefully I will be seeing you around in other videos and on my website and joining the forum. I have a forum on the website. It's not really taken off. I haven't given it much focus, but it's definitely something I'm going to be focusing on over the next 3 months or so. So do go and sign up to that. Get involved with the forums. Help me get that off the ground. That would be amazing. And I will see you in another video very, very soon. Thanks for watching.